Not in the mood, Marcus. She was standing at the bathroom mirror, taking off her earrings. Still dressed from whatever event she'd been at. It was almost midnight, and the apartment smelled like cigarettes and somebody else's bar. I was sitting on the edge of the bed in my Uber jacket, hadn't even taken off my shoes yet. I just wrapped a 12-hour shift. I wasn't asking for much. I was asking if we were still us. She set the earrings on the counter and walked past me to the kitchen. I sat there for a second, just looking at the bathroom light she left on. The counter was wet around the sink. Her makeup bag was half open. Everything looked normal. That's what got me. I got up, turned off the light, and went to bed. That was the third time that week. I counted because I'd started counting, the way you count things when you already know the answer but you're not ready to say it out loud. In the morning, she was gone before I woke up. There was half a pot of cold coffee on the counter and a sticky note that said, "Busy day, don't wait up." I poured the coffee down the drain and opened the Uber app. I'd been driving nights for about 2 years by then. Bushwick to Midtown, Midtown to Brooklyn, Brooklyn back out again. You learn a city differently from behind a wheel at 2 in the morning. You see what people are actually doing when they think nobody's watching. Lindsay and I had been married for 4 years. We met when she was doing event coordination for a small agency in Chelsea, and I was working days for a courier company. Back then, she used to call me on her lunch break just to hear my voice. We got the Bushwick apartment because it was what we could afford, and we told each other it was temporary. That was 3 years ago. When she moved into PR, the schedule changed first. Then the events. Then the networking drinks that ran late. I didn't make a thing out of it because she was building something, and I respected that. I picked up more night shifts to cover the gap in rent when her agency cut hours last spring. We stopped eating dinner together somewhere around October. I noticed, but I didn't say it. What I told myself was, this is just a rough patch. Every couple has them. You work through it. What I didn't say out loud was that she'd stopped looking at me the way she used to. Not angry. Not cold. Just past me. Like I was furniture she'd gotten used to. The week of the sticky note, I started paying attention to the small things. The way she showered the second she got home. Every single night. I didn't say anything about the showers. That's the first mistake I made. I filed it away instead of asking. Instead, I started doing things. Small things. Like I was trying to fix a leak without knowing where the pipe was. I booked a table at this Italian place in Carroll Gardens she'd mentioned back in the summer. Nothing fancy, just somewhere she'd pointed at once and said, "We should try that someday." I texted her about it on a Tuesday afternoon. She responded 4 hours later. "This week's insane. Can we do it another time?" I said sure. I canceled the reservation. I bought groceries and actually cooked on a Friday. Her favorite, chicken marsala, the one she used to ask for on her birthday. She came home at 11:15. The food was cold. She ate standing at the counter, scrolling her phone, said it was good, and went to take a shower. I stood in the kitchen and listened to the water run. Saturday morning, I suggested we take a walk over to Prospect Park. Just the two of us, no phones. She said she had to prep for a Monday pitch and disappeared into the bedroom with her laptop. I went alone. Walked for almost 2 hours. Came back, and she was on the couch watching something on her phone with earbuds in. Didn't look up when I walked in. That night, I lay next to her in the dark and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. She reached for it fast, faster than I'd seen her move in months. I didn't look at the screen. I almost did, but I didn't. She read whatever it was, set the phone face down, and said, "Work stuff," without me asking. Then she rolled onto her side, away from me, and within 10 minutes her breathing slowed like she was asleep. I lay there another hour. The next evening she told me she had an event in Lower East Side. A launch party for some skincare brand, she said. Rooftop venue, client was going to be there. She'd probably be late. I said okay. She kissed me on the cheek on her way out, which she hadn't done in a while, and I remember thinking that should have made me feel better. It didn't. I picked up a shift, drove until about 1 in the morning, then called it. On the way home, I passed through LES without really meaning to. I wasn't looking for anything. That's what I told myself. I slowed down on Delancey and scanned the rooftops out of habit. No party lights, no crowd noise, nothing that looked like a launch event. Could have been anywhere. Could have wrapped early. I kept driving. But the next morning, I checked the agency's Instagram while she was in the shower. They post everything, every event, every activation, every client dinner. I scrolled back 3 days. Nothing about a skincare brand. Nothing about a rooftop. Nothing about Lower East Side. I put my phone down and listened to the water running. This time I counted how long she was in there. 18 minutes. 3 nights later I got a ping at 11:47. Pick up, Avenue B, Alphabet City. Drop off, Bushwick. I almost passed it. My acceptance rate was already low that week, and I needed the fare. So I hit accept and pulled up the route. I knew that street. I dropped people there before. It's all 5-story walk-ups and corner bodegas, the kind of block that's loud until 3 in the morning. Nothing unusual about the address. I was 2 minutes out when I saw her. She was standing on the stoop of a building I didn't recognize, laughing at something, her jacket half on, her hair the way it gets when she's been somewhere warm for a few hours. She looked like herself from 2 years ago. Easy, light, like nothing was heavy. Then the door behind her opened and a guy stepped out. Tall, dark shirt, the kind of easy confidence that comes from working a room every night for years. He handed her something, her scarf, and when she took it he pulled her back by the wrist, slow, and kissed her. Not a quick thing. Long enough that she put her hand on his chest and didn't pull away. I was sitting at the curb with my hazards on. She turned and saw the Uber logo on my windshield. Her face changed. Not guilt, something slower than that. Like recognition. She didn't move. I didn't unlock the door. For about 5 seconds we just looked at each other through the glass. Then I pressed cancel, pulled away from the curb, and drove. She called twice before I got to the bridge. I let it ring both times and kept driving. Not because I was making a decision. I just didn't have any words yet. My hands were steady on the wheel, which surprised me. I thought I'd be shaking. I wasn't. I just felt very clear. The way you feel at 4 in the morning when there's no traffic and the city goes quiet, and it's just you and the road and whatever's actually true. I drove for almost an hour. No passengers, no app, just moving. Around 1:30, I pulled into a lot near the water in Red Hook and sat there with the engine running. The river was dark. A barge was moving slow on the other side. My phone lit up. A text this time. I can explain. Please come home. I read it once. Put the phone on the passenger seat face down. Sat there another 20 minutes. When I got home, she was already there, sitting on the couch with her jacket still on and the lights low. She started talking before I closed the door, something about how it had gotten out of hand, how she hadn't meant for it to go this far, how I was never around anyway. I stood in the doorway and listened to the whole thing. Then I walked to the kitchen, drank a glass of water, and said, I'm going to bed. Marcus, we need to talk about this. Not tonight. I went to the bedroom and closed the door. I didn't sleep. I just lay there and decided what I was going to do next. In the morning, I called in sick to the app and drove to the bar. Not to fight. I just needed to see it straight. The actual place, the actual setup. Because, I can explain, is the kind of sentence that only works if you don't look too close. I knew the address. 2 nights before, Lindsay had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. The screen lit up and I saw the name of the bar in the notification. Just the name, nothing else. I looked it up. Ludlow Street, Lower East Side. That was enough. The bar was one of those narrow spots with exposed brick and low lighting even at noon. A chalkboard out front with the day specials. Closed, obviously, but I could see through the window. For stools at the counter, bottles lined up neat. The kind of place that looks like personality but runs on routine. I stood there maybe 2 minutes. Long enough. On the way back to the car, my phone rang. Number I didn't recognize. I picked up. It was him. His voice was calm, almost friendly, like he was used to these calls. He said Lindsay had given him my number that morning. Said she thought it would help if we talked. He said things had gotten complicated and he didn't want anybody getting hurt. I asked him one question. How long? He didn't answer right away. And in that pause I got everything I needed. About 4 months, he said finally. I hung up. I sat in the car for a while with both hands on the wheel and the engine off. For months. I started counting back, and the number landed exactly where I knew it would. I didn't go home right away. I drove to a diner on Atlantic Avenue that I'd been going to since before Lindsay, before Bushwick, before any of this. Corner booth, bad coffee. A waitress named Carol who never asks how you're doing because she already knows. I ordered eggs I didn't eat and sat there for 2 hours with a legal pad I'd grabbed from the glove compartment. I wrote down 3 things. The lease. The joint account. The deposit. Our names were both on the Bushwick lease, but I was the one who'd been paying it every month for the past year, while her agency cut hours and she said she was getting back on her feet. The deposit was $1,500 I'd put in before we even moved in. The landlord, a guy named Pete, had my number from when the boiler broke last winter. We talked maybe 4 times. He was straightforward. I figured he'd be straightforward about this too. I called him from the diner parking lot, told him I needed to make a change to the lease. Explained it calmly, without details. He asked if there was a problem. I said the situation had changed and I needed my name removed. Then I asked if he'd be willing to apply the deposit toward my last month, so I wasn't leaving money on the table. He was quiet for a second, then said that was fair given I'd been the one paying on time every month, and he could make it work. I said I'd have the paperwork to him by end of week. I drove home, walked past Lindsay in the living room without stopping, and went straight to the bedroom closet. I pulled out my duffel bag from the top shelf and set it open on the bed. She appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer her right away. I took my work shirts off the hangers one at a time and folded them into the bag. Slow. Neat. The way you do something when you've already decided and there's nothing left to argue about. "Marcus, talk to me." "I am talking to you. This is me talking." She stepped into the room and stood between me and the closet. Her arms were crossed, but her eyes were different, not angry, not defensive anymore. Something closer to scared. "You're not being reasonable. You saw what you saw, but you don't know the whole." I talked to him, Lindsay. That stopped her. I went around her and took my jacket off the hook on the back of the door. He told me for months. I counted back and I know exactly when it started. I remember the week because that was the week I picked up 3 extra shifts so we could cover the electric bill. She didn't say anything. I zipped the bag halfway, looked around the room once. Not sentimental, just practical, making sure I had what I needed. My charger, my spare key for the storage unit, the folder with my documents that I kept in the nightstand drawer. "Where are you going to go?" "Doesn't matter." "Marcus, I'll be out by Thursday." I picked up the bag and walked to the front door. She followed me into the hallway but stopped at the kitchen entrance like there was a line she wasn't crossing. I opened the door. "So that's it? You're just done?" I looked at her once, standing there in our apartment under the light we'd picked out together at a flea market in Williamsburg 2 years ago. Then I walked out and pulled the door shut behind me. My phone buzzed in my pocket before I reached the elevator. It was a text from her, sent before I even hit the lobby. "You're making a mistake. You're going to regret this." I read it standing next to the mailboxes. Then I put the phone in my jacket pocket and pushed through the front door. I stayed with my buddy Ray in Crown Heights for 3 nights. He didn't ask a lot of questions, which was the right call. He gave me the couch, a spare key, and a 6-pack he left on the counter without saying anything. That was enough. During the day I drove. Nights too, when I couldn't sleep. The city looked the same from behind the wheel. Same streets, same passengers, same rotation of bars closing and hospitals staying open. It helped, being in motion. It was the only thing that did. On Wednesday, I emailed Pete the signed paperwork. He confirmed the deposit applied to last month's rent by end of day. I was square, nothing owed, nothing left behind. That same afternoon, I went back to the apartment while I knew she'd be at work. I had my key. I took the rest of my things, 2 boxes, another bag, loaded them into the car in 2 trips. 40 minutes total. I left the key on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker. I took one last look at the apartment from the doorway. The flea market light was still on in the hallway. She hadn't turned it off. I left it on and closed the door. Thursday night she texted, "Are you giving up on us?" I sat with it for a while before I typed back. "You stopped coming home." I stopped waiting. I hit send, set the phone face down on Ray's coffee table, and didn't pick it up again for the rest of the night. But in the morning, there was one more message waiting. It was sent at 2:17 in the morning. He doesn't want me to come back either. I read it standing in Ray's kitchen in my socks, waiting for the coffee to finish. Early light coming through the window over the sink. Garbage truck working its way down the block outside. I read it twice. Then I set the phone on the counter and poured my coffee. I thought about typing something back. I had a few things I could have said, but I stood there and drank my coffee and watched the light change on the buildings across the street, and none of the words felt necessary anymore. I didn't respond. Not that day, not the next. I left the message on read and went about the business of putting together a life that made sense without her in it. Found a room in Bed-Stuy through a guy Ray knew. Month to month. Nothing fancy. A window that faced east so I got the morning light. I bought a coffee maker, a set of dishes, a shower curtain with no opinion about it. Small things that were just mine. 3 weeks later I was on a late shift, somewhere on the BQE, city spread out on both sides, and I realized I hadn't checked her Instagram in days. Hadn't counted anything. Hadn't run the numbers on what went wrong or when. I just drove. The next ping came in. Pick up in Williamsburg, drop off near the park. I hit accept and pulled into the lane. The flea market where we'd